Hello, everyone. A very logical day to all of you. And I hope you did what we decided yesterday that you need to read two articles, extra articles from any newspaper. But apart from all the reading material that you have to read two extra articles. Okay? So let's see what we have today, May 23rd, the Indian Express, the first editorial of the paper. A finer balance. So, more than a year after Russia launched a war against Ukraine, Delhi continues to calibrate its position, keeping an eye on the evolving situation. This was once again in evidence at the meeting of G7 in Hiroshima, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi sent out three strong messages. Calibrate its position. Calibrate is to measure where you stand. So, the first message, a call to the international community to raise your voice against unilateral attempts to change the status quo. It was a clearer reiteration of earlier Indian statements. Reiteration is repetition, right? And if you do not know the meaning of repetition, you can still understand from the word earlier Indian statements. So if something has been said earlier and it has been repeated here, so we can understand the meaning of reiteration, particularly at the UN in support of the contemporary global order, built on the UN Charter, international law, and respect for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of states. By calling on all countries to respect the global order, why are the words all countries in inverted commas? Right? That inverted comma will be emphasizing the severity of the sentence or the situation. All countries to respect the global order. Modi appeared to be messaging not just Russia on its aggression in Ukraine, but also China, whose unilateral action to change the status quo on the line of actual control with India and eastern Ladakh created military tensions that are yet to be resolved. So that was the first message that is gone through by the Prime Minister. That the PM said this after his meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is significant. It may have thrilled the Western capitals as much as his "this is not an era for war" remark to Putin. So the first message was clearly put through that the war should not happen or there should be an end to the war. So let us see what was the important point. The first message that he gave was to the countries to respect the global order, right? And this was for China as well as Russia, right? A direct remark to Putin and a meeting with the Ukrainian president. Then this was Modi's first meeting with Zelensky since 2021, though they had spoken 4 times over the phone since the war began in February 22. But Modi's message to the Ukrainian leader that his government would make every possible effort to contribute in whatever way India can for resolving this situation, it has to be seen in the context of his second key message at Hiroshima as the voice of the global south. You see, these are new terms that are now appearing, no, global south. Now, India has said many times that the less developed and developing world has suffered immensely because of the war. This is the reasoning that he is giving. By reiterating this to the club of the world's wealthiest nations, the torchbearers of the status quo in the global order, Modi was not just walking a tightrope, but articulating a normative underpinning for it that the war has hurt developing countries the most, triggering a global fuel, food, and fertilizer crisis. Right? This becomes the main point of the author when he says that, see, Modi, he came up with, Mr. Modi, he came up with the second point here, that this war is actually hurting the developing countries and how it is fuel, food, and fertilizer crisis. So India has said many times that less developed and developing world has suffered immensely because of the war. This he reiterated at this meeting. And he was not just walking a tightrope. The walking a tightrope means he was actually coming up with a balance. कि उसको जो countries, whether on this side or that side, he had to come up with a balance there. That is walking on a tightrope. You must have seen some acrobats doing that. No, small children walking on the rope, and then they need to maintain that balance. So this is what Mr. Narendra Modi was doing, walking on a tightrope, but articulating a normative underpinning. Underpinning means a strengthening one, right? So his norms, the rules would be strengthened. And what was it? The war has hurt developing countries the most by triggering a global fuel, food, and fertilizer crisis, which they do not have the resources to offset. And that the conflict needs to be brought to an end urgently through dialogue before more people die or are displaced and more destruction takes place. So, through dialogue, try coming up with the solving of the matter instead of increasing the destruction there. So, today, the richest nations are driving Ukraine's military response against Russia. If they are seeking a peaceful resolution to the war, it is not apparent by the actions. So, the Western countries are helping Ukraine with all their military equipment. That means they want the war to continue, right? So they are not putting an end or trying to put an end to this war also through talks or through peace, seeking peace. That is not done. So that is not the scene actually that these countries are going to do. So the major point in this second paragraph would be that he has reiterated that the world is suffering immensely because of the war. So there should be a status quo now. The war has hurt developing countries the most, and fuel, food, and fertilizer crisis. So this conflict needs to be brought to an end with a peaceful resolution, not apparent by their actions. Now, when PM Modi pointed out the failure of the UN to prevent conflict, this was his third important message. So, first was a message to China as well as Russia. Second was to the Western nations that they should put an end to this peacefully. And third was to the UN. He was hitting out at the wealthy status quoists assembled at Hiroshima, some of whom are dead set against reforming the international institutions to reflect the voices of the developing and less developed world. That means these people who are the wealthy lot, right? They are there in all the institutions, but it is the developing and the less developed world that do not have a representation in those institutions. This is what the Prime Minister said, that these less developed and developing countries also should get a place there in the institutions, international institutions. So Delhi has been pushing for such reforms for at least 25 years. In the midst of a war in Europe, the G7 forum at Hiroshima, where the US dropped the first of its two nuclear bombs on Japan, the only two times that these weapons have been used in war, was the appropriate place for India to deliver a wake up call. So, three messages given by Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi targeting the wealthy nations of the world. Reforming international institutions. So now the main idea would be a connection between all these three pointers. So PM Modi deftly used the G7 forum. Deftly, first point हो जाएगा, because deftly means efficiently. You can say adroitly. You can use very skillfully. You can write the word skillful, skillfully, adroitly, deftly, right? To recalibrate Delhi's position, to remeasure the where India stands, and deliver important messages. So these were the three messages given by the Prime Minister. One to China, which implied hinted at China and Russia. The second was where they came up with the focusing on the Western wealthy countries. And third was that the developing nations should also get a representation. Why? Because they have been they are suffering from war. Who is it that is suffering? It is the poor countries or the developing nations and the underdeveloped countries. Right? So you have a combination of all the 3 points now. So we have not many words here. Deftly, I just gave you the word. Deftly, recalibrate. I just wrote now, remeasure. Status quo is as it is. It is as it is. ठीक है मतलब जो स्टेबल है स्टेबल रहना वैसे ही रहना वो स्टेटस को कंडीशन होती है reiteration is repetition walking a tightrope means right maintaining a balance you are actually being ambivalent not ambivalent confusing वाला नहीं आएगा but you are seeing that you are maintaining a balance between two sides so you are walking on a tightrope afraid that you might trouble somebody whether it is the A group or the B group, right? Norms means rules. So normatives are something that is like formative sort of. Underpinning is consolidating, strengthening. Fortifying also you can write. And triggering is actuating. Trigger means to initiate, right? So actuating, initiating, starting you can write. राइट इसको एक एक्चुअल जो वर्ड आ जाता है वो एक्चुएटिंग आता है तो फिर एक्टिवेटिंग आ जाएगा उसको एक्शन में ले आना वुड बी एक्टिवेटिंग इट उसको एक्चुअली करना इज एक्चुएटिंग इट स्टार्टिंग समथिंग यू नो द ट्रिगर ऑफ द गन नो समथिंग ट्रिगर्ड राइट सो इट ट्रिगर्ड राइट इसका मतलब एकदम से अपना दिमाग चलना शुरू हो गया उसको भी कहते हैं ट्रिगर्ड सो दैट्स ऑल फॉर टुडे not many words but yes you can still keep reading and do watch tomorrow's episode also of the editorial explained and I hope you are benefiting from it. Thank you and all the best. Have a logical day.